What happens when a wife blames traffic while a husband sits across from her boss's wife, both of them staring at the same location pin? How do you answer public humiliation without shouting or chasing? Can calm, documented truth and a public legal act restore a man's dignity when her circle calls him controlling? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Anselm Pike, and I do my job quietly every night. I count pallets, sign forms, fix small mistakes, and go home before sunrise. I believed steady work and steady love would keep our house calm and safe. My wife, Layla, said she was late because of traffic and overtime. She said her boss needed help after hours, and I should be proud. I did not shout. I checked the time, wrote it down, and made dinner for our daughter, Sienna. The story could have ended there, with me trusting and waiting. It did not. A staff photo appeared from a rooftop mixer, and the timestamp cut through fog. I saw the skyline, the glasses, and her smile aimed at someone off the frame. Later, I sat with another person who knew that smile too well, the boss's wife. I kept my voice level. I showed a clean list of times. She showed a calendar entry that matched my notes. When Layla texted that she was stuck in traffic again, I answered once, calm. I replied that we were waiting for her with the boss's wife. After that, I stopped debating feelings and started recording clear, simple facts. I woke in late afternoon because my shift had ended before sunrise and the house was quiet in that different way it gets when one person is carrying a secret. I made coffee, rinsed 2 mugs, and set them down without thinking on opposite counters. The picture bothered me, so I moved them together, then wondered why it mattered. Sienna came home from school with a drawing of a forklift because she thinks I drive one, and I told her I only sign forms now. She asked if her mother would be home for dinner. I said her mother had sent a message that she might be late because of traffic and because a client needed after-hours help. Sienna accepted that the way children accept weather. I chopped vegetables, boiled pasta, and kept my phone face up on the table because traffic has a way of changing into something else at the last minute. The first message arrived an hour before dinner. She said the freeway was slow and the boss had asked her to stay and finish a deck. I told myself that work does this to people sometimes. I stirred the sauce and watched the clock. A second message came with a new estimated time. I adjusted the flame on the stove and set out plates. Sienna set forks and then brought a toy to the table, which I allowed because I wanted her to feel full even if a chair stayed empty. We started without her. I told Sienna about pallets and scanners, and she told me about a girl who refused to share glue. She asked again if her mother was coming soon. I said her mother was trying. The house began to tell on the day in small ways. The printer in the corner had a faint smell of toner as if a page had spooled recently. An envelope sat unsealed near the mail stack, flipped so the window faced down. I looked inside only long enough to see a printout of a map to a downtown lounge, the kind people choose when they want low light and soft chairs. I slid it back as I found it. The car in the driveway still sat nose out toward the street like someone had planned for a fast departure. On the key hook by the door hung our shared ring, but when I looked closer later, I saw a new, narrow key added at the edge, the kind that belongs to an office cabinet or a private room. I did not touch it. I noted it like I note damages on a pallet. Small, maybe nothing, but there. After dinner, I cleaned and sent Sienna to brush teeth. I went to the stairwell landing where we keep a small desk and the old laptop. I opened a blank document and typed a line that read like a work log. 2:17:12, message from Layla about traffic and after-hours deck, ETA adjusted. I opened a spreadsheet and made 3 columns, date, time, event. I entered simple text in the same shape. 2:18:03, second delay, 2:18:47, third delay. I saved the file to a clean desktop that I had just organized into 2 empty folders, Archive A and Archive B. I created a small calendar reminder with an anchor title that meant nothing to anyone. Maple Room, 9 to 10 a.m. I set a recurring event called Meeting, personal for the following week, and then minimized the screen when I heard Sienna running up the stairs. I helped her find pajamas and read a short story until her eyes slowed. She asked if her mother would kiss her goodnight. I said her mother might be late because of work, and that we could send a goodnight message if she wanted. She nodded and rolled toward the wall. I went back to the landing and printed a single blank page. I slipped it into a folder labeled Household in the kitchen cabinet so that the ordinary binder looked a little thicker than Bill's. Then I set that binder next to Utilities and Bank, so the spines made a clean row. I taped a small USB under the Taxes folder with today's date written on a thin slip of paper and closed the drawer until the lock clicked quietly. A new message from her came near 8. She said she was turning off notifications to focus and that she would call on the drive home. I sent a short answer that I had Sienna down and that the kitchen was clean. I did not ask if the boss would also be on the freeway. I went to the wall planner and circled a date 2 Thursdays out with a red pen. I did not label it. I only wanted the circle to sit there like a bright placeholder for something that might end up being important. In the living room, I placed my phone on the arm of the chair with the screen dim and the sound off. I opened the laptop again and dropped a photo from earlier into Archive A, not because it proved anything by itself, but because I wanted to practice the motion of saving, naming, and letting the cloud pop say file uploaded successfully. That small on-screen note calmed me because it meant the house could burn and the time would still exist somewhere else. I closed the laptop when the stairs creaked, but no one appeared. Older houses carry the day down their frames like people carry tension in their shoulders. 9 came and brought quiet. Outside, a car idled for a long minute and then moved on. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor's television laughed and then fell back into muffled dialogue. I washed the last glass, turned off the light above the sink, and stood in the hallway where the night and the warm air met. The unsealed envelope on the table was still there. I flipped the mail stack so the newest pieces were on top and left the envelope where it had sat. I did not want to look like I had touched anything. On the counter, the 2 mugs had drifted apart again during the evening because I kept setting a spoon near one and a napkin near the other. I brought them back to the same side like 2 pieces of a picture that should be simple. I walked to the driveway and checked the car doors, then looked at the sky out of habit. The streetlights made a soft ring around our block. A rideshare rolled by slow, then sped up when it saw no hand lift. The air in the garage held the flat, cool smell of boxes and old paint. I stood there a moment to breathe because the garage is the one place where the house is only wood and metal and not a record of faces. When I came back in, I put on headphones and opened a call screen without dialing. I wanted to see how my own reflection looked in the dark window with the glow of a serious conversation on my face. I closed it before the ring could start because I did not want to fake anything. I only wanted to be able to handle a real call with a level tone. At 9:32, a message came that said she was leaving the office and that traffic still looked heavy. I answered with a short note that food was in the fridge and lights were on low. Seconds later, a friend of hers uploaded a photo from inside a different building, high ceiling, industrial columns, the sort of lounge that sits below a rooftop. Her friend tagged 3 people, none of them my wife, and wrote a caption about flexible bosses. In the left edge of the frame, there was a sliver of hair and a bracelet I recognized because I had just washed it in the sink 2 days ago. I saved the post to a hidden album on my phone. I did not send a follow-up message. I waited for the version of the evening that would arrive in my hall. 10:15 brought the sound of a car door pulling shut with care. The front door latch clicked. Not a slam, just the neat sound of someone who knows how to close a scene without waking a child. I stayed where I was in the living room so I would not give the impression of a guard at a gate. She came in with the specific air of a person who had been praised. She said work had run long and that the deck still needed edits tomorrow. I said I had put dinner away and that Sienna had asked for a good night. She said she would see her in the morning. Her hair smelled like a place with citrus and recycled air. She placed her keys in the bowl, and the new, narrow key flashed and disappeared. She drifted toward the bedroom in that fast, slow walk people use when they want the hallway to carry a story for them. I rinsed a glass and dried my hands on a towel and told myself that moments like this must be answered with notes, not storms. I walked upstairs a minute later to retrieve my book and saw, on the landing, a text preview slide across my phone screen where it sat face down. The preview did not show a name, only a small icon that meant private. I picked up the device and watched it light fully with a call from private. The sound was still off. The screen glowed with that neutral label and then dimmed because I did not touch it. At the same time, the bedroom door ahead of me closed with a soft press. The latch clicked into place. Through the wood came the hush of a voice pitched lower than her normal. The voice had the shape of sentences used when people coordinate stories, not when they exchange affection. I did not press my ear to the door. I did not stand there long enough to make a shadow on the threshold. I turned and walked back down the stairs and set my phone on the hall table so the face looked toward the ceiling. I opened the laptop again, typed a clean line into the spreadsheet without adding feeling to it, and saved. Then I closed the computer and put it away because rooms should sleep too. Downstairs, I made one small change to the planner. I drew a very faint dot at the edge of the red circle I had made earlier, not inside it, only where the pen could touch the future without marking it loud. I wrote nothing next to it. I returned the pen to the drawer and noticed the envelope on top of the mail again. I slid it under the catalog so it would stop pulling my eye. I washed one more plate I did not need to wash and set it to dry. I ended my night with a simple action that is never dramatic unless someone is watching for drama. I placed a clipboard on the desk with a single word on the top page written in block letters, statement. I did not fill it. I left the board there so that when I passed it tomorrow it would give me the same instruction. Write what happened and nothing more. I turned off the downstairs light and left the two mugs side by side, not because that fixed anything, but because the picture of a pair still mattered to me until facts told me to set them apart. My muted phone lights as private the moment the bedroom door clicks shut and her low voice begins on the other side. Morning began with routine because routine keeps the mind from breaking into pieces. I made oatmeal for Sienna, packed her lunch, and left the two mugs side by side on purpose. Layla had already messaged at dawn that she might run late again because of traffic and a high-priority client deck. I answered with a simple "noted" and a picture of Sienna's drawing on the fridge so the house would look normal if anyone ever scrolled back through our thread. After school drop-off, I returned to the stairwell desk and opened the laptop. I added last night's final times to the spreadsheet. Door latch at 22:15, low voice on the other side of the wood, private call on my screen with sound off. I saved the file to Archive A and waited for the small rectangle to appear. File uploaded successfully. I tested the calendar anchor once, Maple Room 9:10 a.m., and dismissed it so the phone would remember where to glow tomorrow without sound. By late morning, the workplace ripple started. A junior staffer from Layla's office posted a photo of a team debrief at 22:54, string lights, glasses, the flush of people who call overtime culture. Layla's face was not tagged, but in the mirror behind the bartender I could see the bracelet she wore all week. Connor's profile sat beside it, angled in, the kind of closeness people call normal until a clock gets added. I screen recorded the story, saved it to Archive A, and wrote 2 words in my log: mirror proof. I printed a single blank page at home and slid it into the household folder between water and electric to make the shape of paper feel expected. The folder now looked like the life of a person who keeps statements. At noon, Sienna's school pinged me about a field trip form. Layla needed to sign the parent section because her name was on the teacher's list. I texted to ask where I should bring it. She said to leave it with reception at her office. She said she would be heads down and did not want to be pulled away. I said I would leave it at the front desk. I placed the form on a clipboard with 1 word on the top sheet in block letters, statement, because sometimes a word is a handle. I drove downtown, parked in the visitor section, and took the elevator to the lobby that everyone in the building uses when they want to look important. The receptionist smiled the neutral smile of a person who has been trained for all kinds of weather. I wrote Layla's name on the slip and placed the clipboard on the counter. The open-plan floor was visible through glass. Low partitions, plants, the hum of performative quiet. I saw Layla at a table with a laptop and a notebook she almost never used at home. Connor stood near her shoulder, pointing at her screen, not touching, but close enough that the space between them looked reserved. I did not walk in. I stood by a plant and pulled up my phone to photograph my own reflection in the glass instead of their bodies. I wanted to be able to say where I stood. In the lobby at 13:07, delivering a school form. A woman with a badge that said HR passed me and waved at the receptionist. She walked directly to Layla's desk and spoke in the careful, low way people use when they have been told to use phrases like quick word and appropriate boundaries. Layla looked up, smiled the kind of smile people hold like a mask, and went with her to a small glass room. The door closed without blinds. Connor stayed where he was and typed, the posture of someone who knows a meeting is happening about him and will not claim it. I did not turn my head to stare. I looked at the seating map brochure on the lobby table and read names I did not know. The HR woman and Layla returned to the floor 4 minutes later with the same fixed expressions, and I noted the time anyway because even body language has a timestamp. I left the form, thanked the receptionist, and took the parking stub to be validated. In the garage, I passed level 3, where visitor cars sit nose in like polite guests. On level 4, reserved slots faced outward. I did not take photos. I did not linger. I walked past 2 license plates I recognized from earlier evenings. Connor's coupe, Layla's sedan, both parked nose out, both 2 steps from the elevator a person would choose if they did not like to be watched. I kept walking. My car lived in the light of level 3 like normal. Back home, I added a row to the spreadsheet. Thu 1307, delivered field trip form, HR glassroom quick word, garage level 4 cars nose out. I opened Archive B and dropped a copy of the junior staffer's story there too, labeling the file only with date and time. The cloud pop-up blinked again. File uploaded successfully. I closed the window when the floor outside the desk creaked from nobody. Houses remember feet. By late afternoon, Layla texted that traffic looked bad and she would be later than planned. I asked if she saw the form. She said yes, thanks, and that HR was being nosy. Because people cannot handle mentorship without gossip. I did not answer the part about HR. I sent a thumbs up for the form. Sienna did homework at the table and asked when Mom would read the trip flyer. I said soon. She colored in a dinosaur and said she liked trips that start and end on time. Just before 6, a different kind of ripple hit. A Slack screenshot from Jude's friend who works 2 floors above Delaney & Co. The screenshot was a general channel message about after-hours photos and brand optics. It did not name anyone. It said to be mindful of tags when clients are in town. I did not save the image to use it later. I wrote the words mindful of tags in my own note because the phrase told me that the building had noticed the same night that lived in my phone. I made dinner and kept a plate warm. I set 2 mugs close together on the counter again to fight the picture in my head. Sienna asked if Mom was in traffic again. I said Mom said so. Sienna asked if traffic could last through bedtime. I said sometimes it can. She accepted that like weather again. After dishes, I opened the wall planner and put a red circle around a Thursday 2 weeks from now and did not write anything near it. I left a sticky on the inner lip of the household folder that said bring forms and closed the cabinet. At 7:38 p.m., my phone lit with the anchor reminder Maple Room 9:10 a.m. I dismissed it quickly and flipped the device face down. 2 minutes later, my screen brightened again with a story from the same junior staffer. A boomerang of glasses clinking with the caption to flexible bosses. In the left sliver, a bracelet flashed once like a small lighthouse. I saved it and added 1 more row to the spreadsheet, clean as air. I stepped out onto the balcony to breathe and look at the dark square of the office tower 4 miles away. I could not see faces, only the general shine of people making stories out of lights. When I came back in, the house had put on its night voice, fridge hum, heater tick, the low buzz of someone else's television in another unit. Sienna slept with her hand open on the quilt like she was trying to hold a quiet animal. My phone buzzed once more on the hallway table. Layla had sent a line that she was leaving soon, and the freeway map still looked red. I stared at the timestamp because the habit had become a second set of eyes. In the same minute, my other screen, the one in the lobby earlier, returned in my head like a loop. HR walking to Layla's desk, the small glass room closing, the quick word, the posture. I was still thinking that thought when a message from an unknown number slid into the top of my phone. A neutral calendar screenshot with a single meeting line visible, mentor check-in, 7:40 p.m. The sender's name was not shown, only a local area code. I did not answer. I watched it sit and then slide away as if it had never been there. I set the phone down and listened to the house. The printer in the corner spooled once and spit a blank page because I had told it to earlier. I slipped the warm sheet into the utilities folder and made the row a little higher. I went back to the stairwell desk and opened the laptop only to the desktop. No files, just the 2 clean rooms. Archive A and Archive B. I let the cursor rest there like a person at the threshold of a door. In the open plan office, the HR coordinator says a quick word to Layla and leads her into a glass room at the same minute Layla texts me that she is late because of traffic. By Friday, I was done guessing at shadows and ready to put plain light on the clock. I messaged Therese Delaney in the calm tone that people use for school committees and lobby notices. I wrote that I work nights, that I was Layla's husband, and that I had times that did not match the words I was being given. I added that I did not want a fight, only clarity. She answered later that morning with the same calm. She said a coffee in a public place near the tower would be best. She said she had her own dates. I read that answer twice because it sounded like someone else had been moving mugs to opposite counters in another kitchen. We met at a co-working cafe 2 blocks from Delaney & Co. The room had high windows and quiet tables, the kind of place made for people who never shout. I put my clipboard on the table with the top page showing a single word in block letters, statement. I kept my hands flat. I said I kept times because times were simple. I slid across a small list. The night Layla said traffic, while a junior staffer posted a bar mirror. The hour HR took Layla for a quick word, the caption about flexible bosses, the cars parked nose out near the elevator. I added that I was not here to insult anyone. I only wanted the story to stop bending. Therese listened with her wallet still on the table, like a person who would leave the second the tone rose. She said the word patterns. She said she had seen blocks of calendar time become different stories at home. She turned her phone and showed a cropped screen of Connor's calendar block labeled Mentor Check-In, 7:40 p.m. The same evening Layla had said traffic. She said she had more but did not want to pour gasoline on a house when there was a child inside. I said I had a child too, and I did not want flames. I said that was why I sat here, not somewhere louder. My phone buzzed while we spoke. Layla wrote that traffic was a mess and that I should not wait for dinner. I looked at the map bubble inside the text and saw the little circle near the office tower. Not on the freeway. I kept my face level and placed the phone face down. I told Therese that this was the line I had been handed all week. I said I would answer it only once. In the same calm, I typed that Sienna and I were waiting and that we were with the boss's wife. I watched the typing bubble appear and disappear on Layla's side of the thread like a fish at the surface. No words came back. I asked Therese if she wanted to sit 5 minutes in a lobby nearby. She nodded once. We walked the short blocks in the winter light and stood inside the tower where glass repeats every expression back at you. The receptionist looked at us with professional stillness that read as a kind of kindness. The open-plan floor upstairs showed silhouettes that could have belonged to anyone. I did not point. I did not ask for someone to be called down. I only wanted to be in a neutral place when the next line arrived. It arrived as a story, not a message. The same junior staffer posted a boomerang from a rooftop mixer. Skyline, string lights, hands with glasses. The caption said to flexible bosses. In the left edge of the frame, a bracelet flashed once, and then the camera swung away. I saved the clip to Archive A from the bench by the window. The cloud pop whispered file uploaded successfully. I looked at the quiet gray of the lobby and reminded myself that nothing about this had to be loud to be true. I told Therese that I would not ambush anyone. She said she did not want that either. She said she wanted proof to stop being a hobby for people at parties and start being a tool in the right room. She tucked her phone away and said she had errands. I said I had a school pickup in 2 hours. She said she would message if a time block moved again and did not match. I thanked her because it felt correct to thank someone who had met me in the middle of a hard picture and kept her voice steady. She left by the side door the way people leave when they do not want to become content in someone else's feed. I stepped outside a minute later to the sidewalk, and the cold made the building feel newer than it was. Layla's reply finally came. She wrote that she had seen my line and that she thought it was unfair to pull spouses into workplace matters. She added that traffic was still bad and that I should stop making scenes. I answered that I had not made a scene. I answered that I had written times. I did not write that the boss's wife had just walked past the receptionist with a practiced face. I put my phone in my pocket and looked up at the roofline because I wanted to see whether the city would tell me something the people would not. A second clip posted while I stood there. The camera moved through a circle of coworkers as someone said a line I had heard too many times this week. A toast to women who choose themselves. The chant rose not as words, but as a wave, the sound people make when they want to turn a small event into a banner. In the background, a profile that could have been Connor's tilted towards someone out of view. The camera leaned left and then right like a person who had not yet learned balance. I saved it, placed the time in my spreadsheet, and reminded my hands to stop tightening. I walked back to the cafe to pick up my clipboard. I wrote 2 plain lines. Rooftop clip 17 to 112, lobby several neutral witnesses, no contact. I opened my phone and renamed one contact to a single emoji. If anyone ever saw my screen later, there would be no names to argue about. On the way to the car, I pulled up a calendar reminder and added a new anchor called Depot 3:45 p.m. 2 Tuesdays ahead. I did not need another anchor, but the act of placing one made me feel like I had put a pin through a page that was blowing up in the wind. At home, I set a bowl of cut fruit on the counter for Sienna and taped a tiny USB under the taxes folder with today's date in pencil. I placed a sticky that said "Bring forms" inside the household binder. I left the guest bed smooth and the pillow square. The house and the story would match when anyone looked. I sat at the stairwell desk and moved the new files into Archive B while the cloud blinked its quiet line. I did not call Layla. I did not ask for her timeline. I let the posted timeline talk. My phone buzzed once more after sunset. Layla said she would be late and that I should not make her boss's wife part of our marriage. I wrote that I had asked for clarity with facts. I wrote that if the facts kept breaking, I would handle it in the proper place. I did not write the word legal. I did not write the word court. I sat in the kitchen and lined up 2 mugs again because even if the picture was false tonight, I needed to make one true shape with my hands before sleep. A rooftop chant for a toast swells on video while, at street level, a phone camera flash pops as someone takes a picture near the tower doors. Marina picked a family place with a long table and loud lights, the kind where plates arrive fast so people feel fed while they talk. She hugged Layla first and said she looked tired from working so hard. She looked at me while she said it, like hard work was something I would not understand. 2 cousins were already there, plus an uncle and a neighbor who follows Layla on every app. Phones sat face up next to forks. I took a chair at the end where I could see the kitchen door and the exit. Sienna slid in beside me and tapped her feet on the chair rung like a slow drum. Marina started with a small toast to strong women who balance everything. She said Layla had been under pressure and that partners should give room. Layla said she appreciated the support. She said the last few weeks had been heavy. She said I had grown watchful and tense. The neighbor laughed and called it standard husband weather. I cut my food and waited for a space to speak. When it came, I said I did not forbid anyone from working late. I said I was asking the same questions a clock would ask. I said the minute Layla wrote traffic, a work story showed a rooftop toast. I said HR called her for a quick word the next day. I said cars that are parked nose out tell a story too. Marina smiled like a teacher who was ready to correct a child. She said this was jealousy dressed as logic. She said mentoring after hours was not sin. She said men will always try to make weather into guilt. I said I was not naming sin, I was naming minutes. I said the minutes did not agree with the words. The uncle said I sounded like a spreadsheet. I said a spreadsheet was better than a shouting match. Layla told the table I had texted the boss's wife, which she called a humiliation. I said I had asked for clarity in public because private words were turning into dust. The neighbors said I had embarrassed the family. I said the rooftop camera did that before I sent any line. Sienna, who had been quiet, asked why Mom needed time from Dad but not from the man at Mom's work. She said it in a calm little voice that made the table do the kind of silence that is louder than a slap. Marina told her that adults have complicated plans. I told Sienna we would talk at home and that none of this was her fault. Layla laughed too quickly and said people were reading photos wrong. The cousins scrolled and nodded at nothing. I kept my hands flat on the table so I would not look like I was making fists. The server brought ice cream for Sienna and coffee for the adults. Marina said I should apologize to Layla for involving outsiders. I said I was done apologizing for minutes that anyone could see. I said I would not argue inside a restaurant about flexible bosses and blocked freeways. I said I would protect my daughter from confusion, and I said I would do that correctly. The neighbor asked what correctly meant. I said it meant I would not shout tonight and I would not post tomorrow. I said it meant I would follow the right steps if the story kept breaking. Marina said that sounded like a threat. I said it sounded like a plan. Layla told me I was making everything dramatic. I said I was making everything clear. We paid and stood. Marina hugged Layla again like there had been a trial and a verdict. I helped Sienna with her coat. On the way out, the neighbor's phone flashed at the door as she took a picture for a story. She said she liked to capture real families. I kept walking. In the parking lot, Layla said she would meet us at home after a quick stop back at the office. I said nothing. Sienna held my hand tighter and asked if the ice cream counted as dinner. I said it did not, but that it helped. The next afternoon, the pickup line at school was a long snake of cars and small waves. I inched forward and read a field trip email again to steady my head. A text from Layla slid in saying she might be late to dinner because of traffic. I looked at the timestamp and then at the tower in the distance. Sienna climbed in with a drawing of a bridge. She asked if Mom was still in traffic. I said, Mom said so. Sienna asked if traffic always came when people were with that building. I said traffic comes when it wants. She put the bridge on her lap and said, bridges help people keep promises when the water is high. I told her that was a good drawing and a good sentence. At home we ate early. I set out 2 mugs, side by side, like a habit I refused to break. Sienna did homework and asked me to check every other problem. I did. I put the finished sheet on the fridge and slipped a blank page I had printed earlier into the utilities folder so the spine would sit thicker. I opened the household binder and pressed a small sticky to the inside lip that said, Bring forms. I closed the cabinet and made the line of spines neat. I went up to the stairwell desk and opened the laptop. I added clean rows to the spreadsheet. Family dinner 19. Marina frames me as jealous. Sienna asks direct question. I saved the file to Archive A and watched for file uploaded successfully. The rectangle appeared like a small hand on the shoulder. I opened 3 tabs, storage options, delivery tracking, notary near me. I let them sit and then closed them. I set a phone alarm for the next morning, 10:35 a.m., labeled paper drop. I muted the phone and turned the brightness down so the next glow would be private. I checked the recurring event meeting, personal for next week, and let it be. I took a small USB with today's date and taped it under the taxes folder so the tape line would catch my eye when I needed it. I shut the drawer and turned the key until the lock made a clean click. That sound was a square corner in a room full of curves. Night brought the balcony. I stepped out into a cool dark that made my head feel new. Across the courtyard, windows made small squares of other lives. Somewhere a television laughed and then pretended to cry. I stood there and let my breath slow. Inside, my phone buzzed once with a calendar anchor I had set last week, Maple Room 9:10 a.m. I dismissed it and put the device face down on the table. I heard Sienna turn in bed and say my name in a sleep voice. I went in, pulled the sheet up, and told her I was here. She held my wrist for a second like a person holding a handle on a bus. When I came back to the kitchen, Layla's keys hit the bowl with that small metal note that says somebody wants to sound casual. She said dinner had been impossible because of traffic. I said the plate was in the fridge. She said HR had been nosy this week. I said I had left the field trip form at reception. She said I should not go near her office again. I said I had walked in, left a paper, and walked out. She said it was embarrassing. I said photos had embarrassed us long before that paper sat on a counter. She looked away and then held her phone low, her thumb quick. A text preview flashed and vanished like a fish. She smiled at a dot I could not see and placed the phone face down. From the small home office corner, not 10 steps away, a low mechanical sound came and stopped. It was the single-sheet noise of the shredder, a toothy purr, and then silence. Layla said she had to clear old receipts. I said I had already filed ours. I walked to the cabinet, touched the spines of household, utilities, bank, and let my finger rest on the edge of the drawer where the tape sat under taxes. I told her I would not argue with the sound of a machine. I told her I would protect Sienna from confusion. I told her I would handle this in the proper way if the minutes kept breaking. My phone lit up on the counter at that exact second with a soft glow. The alarm label paper drop 10:35 a.m. shone in small letters. I brushed the screen and dimmed it before she could read the words. She asked what that was. I said it was personal. She said I was sneaking. I said I was planning. She said planning felt like punishment. I said planning was the opposite of punishment. Sienna's quiet question from the pickup line echoes in the kitchen as a new text preview on Layla's screen vanishes, and, from the home office corner, the shredder hums once and stops. Saturday morning, I decided to stop arguing with fog and start lining up air I could see. I took Sienna to the park early, pushed her on the swing, and told her we would make pancakes after. She said she wanted chocolate chips in the shape of a bridge. We walked home, and I kept my voice light because light is what children notice first. Layla messaged that she would pop into the office and might be late to lunch because of traffic. I sent a picture of the batter and wrote that we were fine. I left it there. I did not correct any word. When Sienna settled with crayons, I went to the stairwell desk. I opened the laptop and built a clean table with headings I could live with. Times, places, witnesses, child. I filled only what belonged. I slid the rooftop clips, the mirror photo, and the HR moment into Archive A. The small rectangle at the top said file uploaded successfully and then disappeared. I made a second copy in Archive B, dated only with numbers. I printed a single blank page and laid it on a clipboard so the first visible word remained the same. Statement. I left the board by the door like a reminder to my future self. At noon, I sat in a co-working cafe near the tower with headphones on and my voice low. I made a general inquiry, no names, about how a parent shows who cared for a child during overtime weeks. I wrote plain notes in the corner of the top page. Pickups, meals, nights. I renamed the contact in my phone to a single emoji and ended the call. I ordered black coffee and stared at the street where a bus sighed at the curb and left. I let the world be ordinary on purpose. I wanted the shape of my plan to match the shape of a normal day. On the way home, I stopped at the supermarket for milk. In the checkout lane, my phone glowed softly at 10:35 with the alarm I had set 2 nights ago. Paper drop. I dismissed it before the cashier could see the words. I said I did not need a bag. I held the receipt until the heat left it, then folded it small and slid it into my pocket. Outside, a neighbor walked a dog and nodded at me the way people nod when they have seen too many cars come home facing outward. Back in the kitchen, I placed the milk in the fridge and lined up the household, utilities, and bank binders so their spines were even. I slid the blank page I had printed into utilities and tucked a small list of dates into household, unlabeled. I taped a tiny USB under the taxes folder with today's date in pencil. I shut the drawer and turned the key until the lock clicked. That click is the sound of a room remembering its corners. I set my phone face down and turned the brightness low so the next light would be for me first. Layla came in mid-afternoon with a voice already dressed for an argument. She said her friends thought I was embarrassing her. She said I was policing her work. I said I was writing Times. She said Times could be read many ways. I said Times were still true. She said if I could not stop, we should separate to reset. I said we already had. I picked up my pillow and 3 shirts and carried them to the guest room. The hangers clicked like a small metronome. I pulled the sheet flat and set the pillow square. The room now matched our house. Separate sleeping was not a threat. It was a fact. Sienna asked if we were moving. I said we were arranging the house so people could sleep. She nodded and went back to her crayons. Layla stood in the doorway and watched like a person waiting for a spark. I gave her none. I moved a phone charger to the guest outlet and placed a book on the nightstand. I went to the wall planner and let my finger rest on the red circle I had drawn 2 Thursdays ahead. I did not label it. I did not need to. Evening came in through the windows the color of tea. I cooked something simple and set 2 mugs side by side because the picture still mattered to me, even if the story did not. Layla said I was making this dramatic. I said I was making this clear. She asked what I would do next. I said I would handle it properly. She said properly sounded like a threat. I said properly sounded like a road with lines. She told me to stop talking like a form. I said I would stop talking altogether now. I took my jacket from the chair, opened the back door, and stepped into the cool of the driveway. I lifted the garage door halfway and let it stop there. The opening framed a square of late light on the concrete. I put on my headphones. My phone began to vibrate against my palm with the same neutral label it always used when it mattered. Private. I answered and took 2 steps farther so my voice would be my own and not part of the kitchen. I kept it simple. Times, pickups, quiet house, calm plan. I listened longer than I spoke. I said I understood. When I came back in, Layla stood with her arms crossed, waiting for heat. I set the phone face down and gave her none. I poured water into a glass and left it on the counter between the 2 mugs set side by side. I say, I'll handle it properly. Then a call from Private buzzes. I answer it in the half-open garage where she can see me but not hear me. I met her in the office tower lobby at 11:30, where shoes clicked and the elevator bell marked time. She arrived expecting a talk about boundaries. The receptionist looked up. A staffer beside me confirmed her name and placed an envelope in her hands. Inside were the divorce petition, temporary financial and possession orders, and a custody schedule notice. She searched my face for a scene. I gave her none. I reminded her I had said I would handle it properly, then turned toward the doors and stepped into daylight while witnesses pretended not to watch. Service of divorce petition with temporary orders in a public lobby, Impact Lands.